Since the beginning of time, history itself bears witness that black people held an honored place in the world. From the earliest civilizations to the birth of faith and the spread of knowledge, they were not only present but central to shaping humanity. Yet as centuries passed, tides shifted. White societies, fueled by invention and expansion, rose with power, while slowly and deliberately excluding Africans from access to technology, education, and resources. The question rises again and again: why? Why were the very people who once stood at the heart of civilization forced to the margins? Why, even today, do we see Africans in villages without clean water, children without proper education, men and women without equal respect? If one looks deeply into the pages of history, there is no denying the truth. Black men and women have always been among the most respected, gifted, and vital contributors to human progress. In religion, in science, in leadership, in art, in culture, their names shine. Take the story of Islam itself. The Holy Prophet Muhammad had among his dearest companions a man named Bilal ibn Rabah, R.A., a black man, who was not just any believer but the first muezzin of Islam, the one chosen to call Muslims to prayer. His voice, his presence, his devotion was so beloved that the Prophet himself cherished him. This was a man born into slavery, who endured torture under the scorching Arabian sun for refusing to renounce the one God. Chains dug into his body, whips cut across his skin, yet he answered every blow with the word, Ahad. Ahad. One. His story is not just about pain, it is about resistance, about unshakable dignity. Bilal became a symbol that race does not define faith, that no color can limit one's nearness to God. In the Quran itself, Luqman the Wise is honored. A black man whose wisdom was so profound that his advice was immortalized as scripture. Luqman was not a king, not a warrior, but a man of understanding. His words, teaching humility, respect for parents, gratitude, and morality, are still recited by millions every day. He is remembered not for wealth or conquest, but for wisdom, proof that true greatness transcends skin and status. The Islamic world also saw the rise of Amr ibn al-As, a military commander who played a critical role in expanding Islam's reach into Egypt. While not African by birth, his leadership intersected deeply with Africa, establishing Cairo as a new center of Muslim civilization. Through this expansion, African Muslims contributed to the building of mosques, schools, and trade routes, tying the continent to the broader Islamic world. Yet Islam was not the only space where black excellence stood. In polytheistic traditions before Islam and Christianity spread, Africa was already producing visionaries. Imhotep, born in ancient Egypt around 27th century BCE, was a genius far ahead of his time. He was a physician, an architect, a high priest, and a polymath. He designed the step pyramid of Djoser, the first monumental stone building in history. His innovations in medicine were so advanced that centuries later, Greeks like Hippocrates drew inspiration from him. Over time, Egyptians deified him, turning him from man to god. Here was the first engineer in recorded history, and he was a black African. His story shatters the lie that Africa was only primitive. It was, in fact, the birthplace of advanced thought. Centuries later, West Africa would rise under the reign of Mansa Musa, the emperor of Mali. He is remembered as the richest man who ever lived, not by modern standards of billionaires, but on a scale unimaginable. His empire overflowed with gold, salt, learning, and trade. When he made his pilgrimage to Mecca, he traveled with tens of thousands, distributing so much gold along the way that he destabilized economies for years. Yet Musa was not only a man of wealth, he was a man of vision. He built mosques, libraries, and centers of learning, turning Timbuktu into a beacon of scholarship. His reign proved that African kings were not only warriors but builders of culture, science, and faith. And then, the story of Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba, in present-day Angola. A woman of unyielding strength, she resisted Portuguese colonizers for over 40 years. She fought battles, negotiated treaties, and protected her people from slavery. She dressed as a man in battle, sat upon the throne as an equal to kings, and defied the empire that sought to consume her nation. Her legacy is one of resistance, a reminder that black women, too, have always been leaders, warriors, and defenders of their lands. So how, then, did the world turn against them? How did the same people who gave us the first engineers, the richest kings, the bravest queens, and the wisest saints become those denied equality, dignity, and opportunity? The answer is written in the era of slavery and colonialism. When European powers began their voyages across the seas, they did not merely seek trade, they sought domination. Africa, rich in resources and humanity, became a target. Millions of Africans were captured, chained, and shipped across the Atlantic. Families were ripped apart, cultures uprooted, languages erased. They were branded like animals, sold in markets, beaten into submission. Generations grew in foreign lands, building the wealth of others while denied even the right to call themselves human. Colonialism followed the same wound. European powers carved Africa into pieces, drawing borders with no respect for tribes, cultures, or histories. They extracted gold, diamonds, rubber, oil, and every resource they could touch, while leaving behind poverty and division. Education was limited, technology withheld, societies destabilized. Even religion, which once empowered Africans, was manipulated as a tool of control. And yet, even in chains, Africans resisted. They sang songs of freedom in the fields, coded messages in spiritual hymns, and passed down their stories in whispers. Leaders like Toussaint Louverture in Haiti, who led the only successful slave revolt in history, proved that the desire for dignity could never be extinguished. In America, voices like Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, and Harriet Tubman carried the torch of liberation. Across the world, black men and women stood up against oppression, refusing to vanish. But racism did not end with slavery. It mutated. It hid behind laws, policies, and prejudices. Even today, in 2025, we witness discrimination in schools, in workplaces, in police brutality, in healthcare, in housing. Black communities still face poverty, underfunded education, and barriers to opportunity. Africans in villages still walk miles for clean water, while technology races ahead in the rest of the world. Children play barefoot, mothers struggle without medicine, and fathers labor endlessly without reward. The question echoes again: why? Why should the descendants of Bilal, of Imhotep, of Mansa Musa, of Nzinga, live without dignity in a world built partly by their ancestors' sweat? And yet, there is another truth. The awakening has begun. Across Africa, technology is rising. Young Africans are building startups, coding software, innovating in medicine and science. In the diaspora, black voices dominate music, art, film, sports, and politics. The world cannot ignore the rhythm of Africa. It beats in hip-hop, in jazz, in reggae, in Afrobeats. It flows in the courts where athletes like Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, and LeBron James reign. It echoes in the speeches of leaders like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., and Barack Obama. Movements like Black Lives Matter remind the world that silence is no longer an option. That racism is not a past wound but a present war. That until equality is not just spoken but lived, the debt of history remains unpaid. The message is simple. Never hate them because of their black, beautiful color. Love them because they deserve it. Respect is not charity, it is a birthright. Equality is not a favor, it is justice. To deny dignity to Africans is to deny humanity itself. So next time you see a black man, woman, or child, do not let stereotypes cloud your vision. Do not let prejudice poison your heart. Instead, remember Bilal's voice, Luqman's wisdom, Imhotep's genius, Mansa Musa's generosity, Nzinga's courage. Remember the millions who suffered in chains yet dreamed of freedom. Remember that the world itself, the pyramids, the libraries, the songs, the gold, the faith, owes a debt to Africa. And when you ask why today, even in villages, Africans drink unclean water, wear tattered clothes, or remain distant from technology, remember this too. It is not because they cannot rise. It is because they were pushed down. Yet now, they are rising again. They are reclaiming what was stolen, rebuilding what was destroyed, and reminding the world that their throne has always been there, waiting. The story of humanity is incomplete without the story of Africa. And the story of Africa is incomplete without justice.